Yo, what's up, and welcome to episode 43 of Throwback Hoops. My name is Rob Clayton, and joining me as he does every week is Woody V. Woods, how's it going, man?
Good, brother. Just got the new 2K23, man, so it's been keeping me busy, you know what I mean? So
Nice. I bet you're doing a lot of that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into that myself. You know, I wasn't a fan of 2K22, Woods. I'm hoping this one I'll actually enjoy a bit more, but
good to see you, Robbie.
Before we get into the big show tonight, so just letting everyone know where to find us. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, and also where all podcasts are found. So, all right, this week, so pleased to have a very good friend of the show back. Gives a very big and warm welcome this week to Matt McQuade. Matt, how's it going?
Good, gentlemen. How are we this evening?
Very well. I didn't have the 1 minute sort of intro prepared that Woody did for you, when you came on last time and stuff like that. So, no, obviously.
Come on, mate. What are you doing?
Friend of the show. So,
you got to talk up the guests. Come on.
No, it's great to have you back, though,
I'm
Matt.
kidding.
Of course. And
it's great to be back, guys.
Probably fitting as well. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Sydney Kings tonight. So what I thought I might do is maybe just hit record. I might just go out and grab a drink or something. You guys can just talk all about that. Well, look, before we get into it, as we always do, boys, let's sort of showcase some jerseys. I can see we've got a bit of a mix here, maybe a little bit of a Celtics theme, just for Matt's benefit tonight. But Matt, why don't you take us away and tell us about that jersey you're wearing?
Yeah, so what I'm wearing is Mark Dalton of the Sydney Kings, his actual game jersey from 1994, which I wore to Game 5 of the 2004 Grand Final, the Kings and the Razorbacks back in the day. So, it's got a bit of history behind it, this one.
How envious are you of that jersey, Woods?
Oh, man, Heath. And that's OG, man. It's not one of those replicas, right? He's had it since back in the day, So
how big is it on you there, Matt? Obviously, Mark Dalton was a pretty sizable fella. Is it hanging down a bit low, or is it Mark Dalton also
Mark Dalton didn't have the gut like I've got. So, I've put on the kilos over the years, but it does hang a bit loose still. But Mark's a really good friend and has been for 30 plus years now. Wow, it's crazy.
I'll tell a quick story about Mark Dalton as well, Matt. So I went to Pennant Hills High School growing up, and he came to our school, I think, when I was in year 10 or something like that. You probably wouldn't want to hear this, but he was doing a bit of a shooting demonstration. I reckon he must have missed 8 free throws in a row. It got to the point where the atmosphere around us is all a bit, geez, I hope he makes one. And he finally made one. It was either his 9th or his 10th attempt, I think. But I always
he was a good shooter too, Mark. Yeah, I mean, he could shoot from 3.
They were pretty ordinary rings at Pennant Hills High School, to be fair, so probably he wasn't used to those rings. But,
there you go.
And I believe you're wearing a pretty special T-shirt under that one. You want to maybe let us know what that
it's Beat LA. So it's very green, obviously, and it's a Boston shirt that I got many years ago.
Very nice.
Ask him about the hat, though.
Oh yeah. So this hat, it looks like an ordinary Celtics hat, right? White with green. I'm going to take it off with my terrible lack of hair. I don't know if we can see that on the monitor.
Yeah,
but you might recognise the signature.
Yes. The president.
The president, then coach Brad Stevens. So for those who didn't quite see, hey Matt, go Kings and C's Brad Stevens. So the story behind that was when Damien Cotter was the head coach of the Sydney Kings. He and Brad Stevens are very, very good friends, as a matter of fact.
Interesting.
And Damien travelled to the US and actually went to Boston. And was extremely kind enough to get the Celtics to give me that hat, and then he got Brad to sign it for me. So it's
cool.
Great guy. And Damien Cotter now assistant coach for the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Yes.
So that's one of my more treasured. That was the coach, and now the pres of my beloved Celtics. So and it's funny. You guys are all in Celtics in the Kelly Green, which I'm loving.
That's right. Yeah, we pulled him out a special. So why don't you take us away, Woods? We can see you're wearing the old school, bit of a retro looking one there. But who you?
Yeah, I got the hat as well. Just representing because Matt's on the show. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Standing up, 0-0. Yep. That's a nice jersey, that one, isn't it?
Saw him play as well in 2nd of January 1990 at the old Boston Garden. I saw
was he 40 or 50 at that time?
Yeah, no, he was in his late 30s at the time. So, same game that I saw Larry play and a bunch of others. So,
1990, he would have been 33, I think. But I mean, that was still, middle age for the Chief. He was actually named after the character from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Correct.
Right? Chief
Bromden.
That's a rare jersey, man, isn't it? That's very rare.
Yeah, no, it's a classic.
McHale ones, you see Bird, you'd never see Chief jerseys.
You hardly see Chief, So big props to you, Woody, for that one.
No worries. No, it's nice. It's a classic. And he actually, you remember him as a Celtic, but he was drafted by the Warriors initially in 1976, I think it was.
Yep.
And 21 seasons in the NBA, even in that last season with the Bulls, people forget he averaged like 14.3 points per game at 41 years of age, right? Won that championship with Michael Jordan. Very durable player. I mean, I think the other centers who played 21 seasons, Kevin Garnett, Dirk Nowitzki, Kevin Willis, maybe? Those are the four guys who all played 21 seasons.
Right? Yep.
I mean, really durable. I mean, for him to be able to play through so many different eras and come up against various different people, that's testament to him. And, I think, 4 championships, those 3 with the Celtics, if I'm not mistaken, Matt, and then 1 with the Bulls later. Hall of Famer on the 50th anniversary and 75th anniversary team. We don't speak about him that much. He gets slept on a little bit. When you talk about the great centers in the late 80s to early 90s, you speak about all these other guys, like, your Ewings and your Olajuwons and
Well, back then you have to remember, Woody. I mean, even at his prime, he was dealing with Kareem, even though it was a late Kareem and Moses Malone, and those two guys. And then that same era, you kind of had your Artis Gilmores, and as you mentioned, Akeem Olajuwon coming up. It was called a team then. So those sorts of guys were really the guys that were getting the notoriety. And he was playing alongside, Kevin McHale, arguably, not arguably, one of the greatest low-pace players that ever lived. And probably before Tim Duncan came along, the greatest low-pace player who ever lived. And then, everyone knows how I feel about Mr. Bird, but, I mean, for me, he's one of the top 5 at least to ever play the game. Now, I saw the man play live, and also saw, a humongous amount of games from him when he was in his absolute prime. And so Robert tended to get a little bit overlooked, but I'll tell you what, they loved him in Boston. I mean, I was, as I said, I was there for that game against Washington, and I'll never forget it. When he gets introduced, 15,000 people just yelled, "Chief!" Just gave you chills. It was amazing.
Nice. No, I'm liking that one, Woods. I'm liking the hat and jersey combo, as you like to do. So, all right, well, look, I'll sort of finish it off. So, as I've been doing the last few weeks, a bit of an NBL, NBA sort of combo there. So, hanging behind me there is a yellow Sydney Kings home jersey from 2015 featuring Josh Childress. So, look, Jay Chill, we did feature him in one of our early episodes, Woods.
First ever episode, man.
First one, was it? No,
yeah, all right, yeah.
I'm not going to go through his career again.
Great guy. Great guy. I was doing a lot of media work for the Kings when he was here, actually.
Nice.
And, I mean, absolute professional, total pro, and a class act all the way. Love him.
I'll tell you what, as Atlanta Hawks fans as well, to get him over here was just like amazing, wasn't it?
Oh, it was huge.
Special thing, yeah.
We couldn't believe it, man. I remember you texting me. I was driving. I had to stop the car when I saw that text come up on my phone. Because when he got drafted coming out of Stanford, with that afro, and I'm like, man, I love this guy. I actually got a Josh Childress Hawks jersey, right? And then many years later to see him come and play for our team, my NBA team, a guy from my NBA team come to play for my NBL team. That was amazing, man. So
cool,
it meant a lot, right?
And was on the cover of his own video game too.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. How many players in NBL history can say that? Him, probably, and that's it.
That's it. All right, so I'll just stand up and show you the one. So I'm a bit of an old school Celtics one, then I'm going to give Matt a bit of trivia on this one when I'm done as well. So I'll stand up and show you this one. So don't give it away, Woods.
Nah, see if you can guess this, man. I mean, you're God if you can guess this one.
Oh, God, don't. Oh, that's horrible. Come on, man. That's too many bad memories. Goodness me. Well, I mean, there's a whole bunch of them that have worn it. Obviously, the current one's Peyton Pritchard.
Yeah.
Well. Is that the Kyrie Irving one?
It is Kyrie, yeah. And there's one other really well-known one that was on that championship team as well.
Well, Robbie was wearing the Dana Barros number 11 Celtics.
Yeah, all the people, Big Baby's the other one.
Yeah, Big Baby, yeah.
Big Baby.
Well, I'll tell a bit about Barros, and I'm going to do a little bit more trivia on that one. But, yeah, Dana Barros, really big fan of this guy, as I probably was with all the shooters back in the 90s and everything. So, played 13 seasons in the NBA after getting drafted out of Boston College at pick 16 in the 89 draft by Seattle. Went on to play for the Sonics, 76ers, Celtics, and Pistons. His accolades were NBA All-Star and Most Improved Player in '95 with Philly. He was obviously a prolific three-point shooter and scorer throughout his career. Career high of 50 in a game as well, which is absolutely no joke there. I was going to say as well, Matt, so we know how much of a big Celtics fan you are. So I actually had a look. So Barros wore this number 11 for the Celtics from 95 to 2000. Since then, there's been 12 players that have worn that number 11 jersey. So I think we've named 3 already. So we've named like Peyton Pritchard, Kyrie, and Big Baby.
Yep.
Any others you can remember? Because there's a few random ones. Like,
Enes Kanter, that was one.
Correct, yep.
Oh, boy.
I know, Woody, you're not going to be any help for this because you're not.
I'm bad with numbers, man.
Oh, Evan Turner.
Nice.
There's another one. Evan Turner.
I think you're about halfway.
Man. Yeah. Jared Bayless?
Correct.
Wow.
I'm impressed.
It's funny because there are a couple of other guys that wore it. This is before you're talking about. One was Bob McAdoo, infamous trade to the Celtics.
I think Frankovic wore it as well. Stojko Frankovic.
Yep.
You've named nearly the last 5. I think there's just some early ones there. So I think there's 1, 2, 3. There's 5 more to go. So you've done well. We're getting the 7 so far. 5 more.
I was thinking of Sam Vincent as well because he was on the 85-86 team, which I maintained was the greatest team that ever was. The champion team. Sasha Pavlovich, maybe?
Correct, you nailed that.
Oh my god.
Like that.
This is good.
It's just because I'm an idiot. I'm just trying to think who else.
He's like me because he remembers random facts and numbers. This is right up my alley, something like this.
Yeah.
Mark Bryant, was that another one?
Correct. Mark Bryant is correct.
Big Mark, yeah.
Big Mark, the big man.
I know. Courtney Lee. Thank you.
Courtney Lee, correct. Well, you've only got 3 left, and that's like the very first 2 that were in the very early noughties. And then there was Mark Bryant, and then there was one other guy. And I know you know the other guy well. The first 2 are a little bit random, but.
Well, Michael Smith, I remember, wore it, but he got dropped, but he might have been before then.
Yeah, that was before that, I think. Yeah.
Randy Brown, I think is another one.
Brown is correct. He was the first one to wear it after Barros. Well done.
I'm missing.
Matt would go this well with this little trigger.
Hang on, I'm missing a couple.
Yes,
who am I missing?
There's the one that played after Randy Brown, and there's the one that played after Mark Bryant before Glenn Davis, if that gives you any clues there. So,
Marcus Banks. That was another one.
Correct. Yep, he was the one that I sort of knew. The other one's a bit more random. There was one that I don't totally remember. This guy. I think this was maybe only one season. Got a pretty common surname.
You got me. I've got no idea.
Shamond Williams was the other one, but
don't remember him at all.
Get 11 out of 12, and some of those random ones like Sasha Pavlovich. I'm impressed with that. So
I'm like, let's before the show, I was like, let's not leave Matt guessing these 11. He's probably going to get 3 or 4. So we've got a time frame within which we've got to record the episode. So let's not take too long on this. And he just rolls them all out. No, you did great, man. That was awesome. Yeah.
Killed it.
I'm just a Celtics nerd, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone that knows me knows this. So,
respect.
Well, I don't have any bobbleheads that these guys are wearing. Of course, if I could have got a Dana Barros bobblehead over the years, I would have. But yeah, don't. Actually, I do have a.
I love Dana, actually. Yeah, I loved him.
Player, wasn't he? Yeah. All right. Well, I thought we might just, before we sort of get onto our Kings preview, which is sort of the NBL team we're going to be featuring this week, I'm just going to go through a bit of quick hits there, boys. So just a little bit over the NBA, WNBL, and NBL1. So we might start with the NBA. So I just thought I'd maybe mention a few things that have sort of happened since we last recorded. So first one I've got on the list here is Chet Holmgren, ruled out for the season for OKC. Woods, why don't you take us away with that one, mate?
Sad, he's got that body that, was going to be prone to some injuries, but, he'll have a season out and recover, and he'll come back strong. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world. OKC.
No fears at this stage that this could be the latest sort of big guy to...
Yeah, well, I mean, he could spend this next year working on certain things like his body, etc. Maybe not being able to play on the floor and get that conditioning better so that, for the rest of his career he's set up. And that's a young team. They're going to learn. So I don't see him sitting out for a season being a huge problem for OKC.
Yeah.
So,
it's a shame, though, isn't it, just for fans in general, seeing how good he was in that summer league.
We saw Giddy and him play together and really get some...
mate, right?
Yeah.
Chet mate, they were calling him.
Get some real good, a good connection between the two. So it's a bit disappointed I can't see them, but as I said, not in the
wait an extra year, which was happened for a few sort of big first round picks, isn't it, over the years? Something whether it's Simmons or Joel Embiid, a few people like that. Blake Griffin was his first. So, all right, the second one I'm going to throw to you, Matt, because I know you're obviously a big Lakers fan there. So, but the question I wanted to ask with you. So, look, Pat Beverley getting in that trade there from Utah to the Lakers. What are your thoughts on that one?
I don't think it moves the needle particularly much. I think he's past his prime. I hate Pat Beverley. I'll be honest. I think he's a punk. I think he's an absolute punk. I hate guys that look. He's made a name for himself on the talking head with the talking heads and and look, he speaks his mind and all of that. But he's one of these guys I can't stand. One of these athletes that if you haven't played the game, your opinion is worthless. That's how he thinks. Yeah. I cannot stand that. Because there's someone in particular, I won't go into who it is, but there's an ex-NBL player that has that exact attitude, and it's just so wrong.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, the Lakers to me are just old, injury-prone. I mean, are we going to get a full season out of Anthony Davis? Are we going to get a full season out of LeBron?
Yep.
And as great as he is, and as great as Anthony Davis is, and then who else? Beverley
on that team.
Nothing. And again, it revolves around two guys. And granted, they're two Hall of Famers, obviously, the pair of them. But is that going to be enough in a West that is increasingly stacked? I don't see it. And I mean, we all know he's a good defender, but he's also, he's pulled some stuff. I mean, pushing that business ridiculous.
Some of the defense is a bit overrated too, maybe as well. I've heard a little bit.
He's been a serviceable role player. I'll give him that. But to say that he's traded to the Lakers and it's going to make them a contender or move the needle in any way, shape, or form, no, I don't see it. In all honesty, but then again, that could be my Lakers bias, anti-Lakers bias, and the fact that I just don't like him. Look. Again, you only see what you see on television, right? But the perception, and again, in his whole attitude, and I mean, even, I saw on Twitter, other NBA players were having a go at him when he was carrying on, saying, your word is not the word of God, mate. Chill. Yeah. You're acting like your word is above everybody else's when he was, on those ESPN shows. So, whatever.
Fair call.
Well, he's launching his own podcast, by the way, guys. We don't want to hear much of that, right? It's coming out next week. Pat Beverley's launching his own podcast.
Can't wait to subscribe to that.
Well, what about this big Donovan Mitchell trade there, fellas? So obviously another trade from you.
All I got to say is this. Poor Knicks fans.
You hear that package they offered as well. That package they offered, to be honest, if I was Utah, I would have taken that one. Potentially, some people have said that they would have had to have paid more to Barrett than what they had to pay to Sexton there. But I don't know. Woods, what were your sort of initial thoughts on that?
It's going to be a really fun team to watch. I mean, you got the Twin Towers there. You got that, Donovan Mitchell backcourt with Darius Garland, right? And then you'll have Isaac Okoro at the 3, and then off the bench you're gonna have Kevin Love. You're gonna have Lamar Stevens there. Who else are you gonna have? Ricky Rubio. I mean, it's gonna be a good team, man. They're gonna be fun to watch. Darius Garland, I expect him to take his game to the next level this year, and having a running mate other than Colin Sexton is gonna be good for him. I think Donovan Mitchell and him will work well together. So
what were your thoughts on it, Matt?
Yeah, look, you got to admire Cleveland for going all in. I mean, all those picks that they had to give up, but they believe in this core, and I mean, Evan Mobley's probably the key to the whole thing. I mean, if he goes to that next level, as in superstar level, which a lot of people, second in Rookie of the Year voting, obviously, and a lot of people think that's where he's headed. Yeah. This could be massive for the Cavs.
Yeah. Oh, we forgot Karis LeVert as well, sitting there on that bench. Man,
they've got a bit of depth. I like Karis LeVert. Yeah,
wow, they've got a bit of depth, man.
As well. Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
I mean, they're another one of those teams. Look, us being Hawks fans there, I don't think, Matt, we're probably too worried as Celtics fan in terms of where the Cavs are. For us as Hawks fans, I mean, they're, Cavs, I mean, we beat them in that playing game last season, but Hawks have improved too, but the Cavs are going to be a serious team in the East this year, aren't they? So good to see, I think. They're not normally the team that sort of shakes things up, are they? Unless it's like LeBron sort of going back there for when he decides to. They don't really sort of strike big in free agency or anything else like that. So it was a good sort of trade.
I think Matt's right as well. Evan Mobley's an absolute stud. We saw that last year, right? And
love him.
He's going to be exciting to watch this year, right? So
that's why it makes a lot of. I mean, for Cleveland, it actually does make a lot of sense
Yeah.
Because they believe in it. You got him and Jared Allen up front, two long, athletic, rim-protecting bigs that can run the floor and do a lot of things for you. And then, look, Donovan Mitchell's a star. There are people who don't think he's that great. There are Donovan Mitchell fans, there are Donovan Mitchell critics, but I think he's a star. And I think, in a new situation where he's got these young guys around him, young athletic guys, hungry guys, I think too. Yeah. I think it's going to be huge. But man, who'd be a Knicks fan, honestly? They are an absolute. It's a real shame, for everything that New York has been over the last few years, it's still the mecca of basketball. I've been there. I've been to MSG and watched a Knicks game. There's nothing like it. There really isn't. There's nothing. It's incredible. That whole thing. I wonder if it'll
ever change until Dolan relinquishes the team somehow, which he clearly never will. So, yeah, it absolutely is.
When it comes to Matt, he may be a brilliant businessman. I don't know, but when it comes to building a team, he's clueless.
Yeah.
And managing a club, it shouldn't be this way. They should have superstars. It should be like Patrick Ewing and back in the old days with Willis Reed and Clyde Frazier and Dave DeBusschere and all those guys. They were an incredible team in the 70s, and then obviously the Riley Knicks in the 90s and what they were obviously when Patrick came in. But over the last, how many years has it been since they've been relevant?
So long, right? Yeah.
It's a sin, and I know the NBA would hate it. Brooklyn's more relevant than they are. And Brooklyn came from New Jersey, and no one gave a damn about the Nets when they're in Jersey. No, and now Brooklyn's kind of taken that mantle.
They're the new sort of cool team there, aren't they? Good colours, nice looking home court and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, probably the last one in the NBA, and look, obviously a lot less of this one, but I actually thought this was reasonably topical there, and obviously, our team's in the East there, but Montrezl Harrell signing with Philadelphia last week. What are your thoughts on that? Personally, I thought that was a really good signing for them. Someone that, is just that proven sort of backup, he's used to playing that six-man role. You can bring him on there, gives, substitutes sort of Joel Embiid and the other sort of big guys. What were you guys' sort of thoughts on that signing?
Yeah, I pretty much echo what you said, Robbie. I think, look, anytime you can add a proven commodity like Trez into that front court, to give them some added depth is a good thing, particularly in an Eastern Conference at the top level anyway, which is pretty much loaded.
They've had a good off-season, Philly.
The top two teams, they've had a very good off-season. And then you got fat James Harden replaced by skinny James Harden. So,
exactly.
if he's legit, if he's real in what he wants, in what he says, and if he's absolutely 100% committed, they're frightening. They are frightening. There's no doubt.
The only caveat there is Trez has had some legal problems in the off season. You know what I mean?
There's that too.
So that the thing is, he's got to have his head in the right place. To come in and contribute. So
I'm thinking just from an on-court perspective, Woody. I guess it's more of a on paper thing. You're 100% right though. Yeah.
Tell you what, before we close out the NBA, they've obviously mentioned you're a Celtics fan, Matt. How are you sort of feeling? What are you?
Am I a Celtics fan? I'm sure people don't know. People know I'm a Celtics fan.
Month out from the season, but how are you feeling about it?
Well, not as good as I was before bloody Gallinari did his knee.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Oh no. But look, love the addition of Brogdon. I think that's exactly what they needed. You got to believe that my guy Jaylen Brown and obviously Jason are going to take another step. I think Marcus Smart was incredible. Robbie Williams was unbelievable. The problem with the Time Lord got to stay. Yeah, exactly. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to. That's his problem has been health. That's the issue. Al Horford's the ageless wonder. I've got no problems with him. And that year he had in Oklahoma City, I think revitalised him because he didn't play. So he comes in and he was unbelievable last year. Will they get back to the finals? You'd like to think so, but man, I'm still a bit depressed about losing. Look, there's no shame in losing to one of the greatest ever one of the greatest teams, organisations ever, and one of the greatest players ever in Stephen Curry. But I kind of think where we were, it's a little bit of a opportunity missed. I think even at this stage of their development. Udoka did an amazing job as a first-year head coach. He's going to be better for the run. They can certainly get back to the finals, there's no doubt. But, Philly, we talked about Philly, Milwaukee, so every time you get to the finals, there always has to be a little bit of luck involved. And, look, I'm not stupid. stupid enough to say that we would have beaten Milwaukee for sure if Chris Middleton was there, right?
Yeah.
So they get Middleton back. Giannis is probably it's ironic that the two best players in the world, I don't think there's any question, are both Europeans. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic. For me, anyway. Yep. I think they're the two best players in the world. And
Jokic is probably third.
Jokic would be third. And, I mean, okay, you can make the argument that Stephen Curry's up there as well. I mean, the greatest shooter ever. I mean, no two ways about that. And you can make that argument. He's done things on a basketball court that I've never seen before. But, you kind of look at Giannis and you look at Middleton coming back, and I think, Joe Ingles, if he gets healthy, I think he'll be perfect for Budenholzer's offense. And he'll add a lot to them, on and off the court. We've seen it. He's an amazing teammate, that one. So, I'm quietly confident that they can do something special again, but I think it's going to be a lot harder because I think Milwaukee's improved and I think Philly's improved.
Yeah. No, good call. I think the East is certainly going to be competitive. I can't wait for it to all get underway. I mean, obviously the NBL is going to start a few weeks earlier, but looking forward to it. I know we got some fantasy drafts coming up at the end of the month as well, Woods.
Looking forward to it.
Not sure if you play NBL fantasy as well, Matt, but we always try and get one of those comps together. So if you're keen for a go in the NBL fantasy, you don't just have to pick Kings players, either you can.
Oh, damn, really?
You go some Wildcats players,
I might pick everybody else but Kings players this year. Who knows now?
Liam will be out to get me.
Brian, I'm kidding.
No one's going to beat Santa Maria anyway. So
I beat him last year. Remember? I beat him last year in the finals.
Oh, did you? Awesome. Yeah. Well done, Woody. Now I didn't know that. Now that I know that, Liam's actually coming on our podcast. He's coming on our podcast on Thursday, so I'm going to talk trash to him about that. That's nice.
All right, well, I'm just going to move along to a bit of NBL1. So we obviously saw the completion of the NBL1 competition last weekend in Melbourne with the national finals. Look, I enjoyed it. I just think it was a little bit disappointing with the scheduling, obviously. All the sort of NBL and WNBL players that were on those teams weren't able to play in the finals. There was also some players out with international commitments and other things like that. So it was kind of a shame. It's disappointing to see Albury go down there and lose 2 games by 40 plus without the GOAT playing for him. But look, we understand we need to keep her fresh for the international commitments. But it was actually a huge weekend for the Western Australian teams there. So I don't know if you were watching it, Woods, but both the WA teams won in the men's and the women's.
Yeah, I saw, man. I saw. Yeah.
So in the men's, the Rockingham Flames beat Frankston 85-74. Led by finals MVP Ryan Godfrey and Marshall Nelson, who we obviously know there. Tom Childress is on that team. Look, they actually had Devondrick Walker, who Brisbane picked up last week, and Greg Hire, who both weren't available in that game. So pretty good effort, I think, for them to sort of win without 2 important guys there. And just going to the women's round as well, it was the Warwick. So Warwick, don't call them Warwick, Senators, beating Ringwood 83-75 to take out the title. So they actually have ended up on a 21-game win streak to finish the season, which is pretty remarkable there. So they were led by their German import and finals MVP Leonie Fiebig, I think I'm saying it right. 16, 18 and 7 in the final. The NBL1 season's over. I'm probably Matt will be saying the same, but I can't wait for next season to come back and get on the mic again, and hopefully the NBL1 East, especially that Matt and I both cover, will continue to go on to bigger and better things next season. I think they will. So bring on 2023 for that. So all right, and finally, I know, Woods, you spoke to me earlier and said I haven't been following it, so don't ask me a question on that, so I won't. But I just thought I'd just quickly mention the WNBA Grand Final at the moment. I've actually been doing the opposite to you, Woods. I've been watching a lot of these games. I sort of got a bit of a soft spot for Seattle there, so I watched all their semi-final games. I was a bit disappointed to see them lose there. Obviously, they've got the 2 Aussies and Brianna Stewart on that team. But the final's been played between Las Vegas and Connecticut. Vegas won game 1 yesterday, 67-64 behind league MVP Aja Wilson, who led the Aces with 24 and 11. So I think it's going to be a really good series. Look, if anyone gets a chance to watch Chelsea Gray for Las Vegas, I'd suggest they do so. She's one of the better one-on-one players I've ever seen in the female sort of game there. Look, obviously they've got the 1-0 lead, but that would be sort of my tip to win it all anyway in the WNBA. So, all right, so this is the time where I put my microphone down and go out and have a drink. But we might do this NBL team preview, yes. So it's going to be a bit of a City Kings love fest, I'm sure. So, all right, Woods, I'm going to kind of throw it to you a little bit here. Obviously, this is our 6th NBL team preview. I haven't really sort of been having any order in here, but number 6 of 10. So, very outnumbered there. So, why don't you take us away, Woods, with your thoughts on how you see this season going?
All right. You guys got the screen up there? Can you see it?
Put your fancy graphics up again, Liz. I like it.
Beautiful. So I think I'll just take you through the team for the season to all the listeners who can't see the slide in front of them. So 2023 roster, obviously Chase Buford, head coach. Our returning players are Xavier Cooks, DJ Vasiljevic, Sean Bruce, Jordan Hunter. Coming back from injury, Jalen Galloway, Angus Glover, Buwali Bells, and Iggy Mitchell as a development player. New acquisitions, Tim Suarez. Am I saying that right, Matt?
I've already butchered it about 5 or 6 times.
Suarez, all right, I got it. Derek Walton Jr., G League assist leader and a Detroit Piston last year, so he's going to be a great acquisition. I want to hear from you, Matt, shortly about what you think about Derek. Justin Simon, we all know, ex-defensive player of the year, joining the better New South Wales team, as he said. Kuat Noy, who was actually at your daughter's training session today, Robbie, at Castle Hill. So shout out to him for doing some good community work, coming over from the Cairns Taipans. Jackson McCoy. I can't even say this guy's name. Can you?
Isaac Gatona.
Yeah. Oh no, I can say. Okay, sorry, I couldn't say where he came from. KK. Okay.
The Croatian team.
Where did Jackson come from? Yeah. Okay, Isaac Gatona from the Adelaide 36ers. All right, the depth chart as it looks like. Walton Jr., Buwali Bells, and McCoy at the point guard position. DJ Vasiljevic, Bruce and Mitchell at the 2 spot. Simon, Glover, Galloway at the 3. Cooks, Noy, Gatona at power forward, and Suarez and Hunter at center. So, yeah, take it away, Matt. Tell me what you think.
I thought you were still going, Woody. Look, I think they've done exceptionally well to kind of rebuild the club. The biggest returnees, if you like, are obviously X and DJ. They kind of they will underpin what this club does this season, quite frankly. And the idea was basically to build around them. And Chris Pongrass came on our podcast last week, and he and Chase Buford, obviously, and they talked about that, the fact that it's really Xavier Cooks and Down, Vasiljevic's team. And the imports were, last season, the Kings were so fortunate, and I've said this, obviously, that they had 3 legitimate NBA guys. When's that ever happened? It just never happens. Ian Clark was an absolute gift from God. We had RJ Hunter. I still maintain if RJ Hunter was on that team, and they wouldn't have even made the grand final. He wasn't the right fit. He just wasn't. And so it was one of those things where you hate to see a guy go down, you really do. But to get Ian Clark, thanks to Andrew Bogut's connections, obviously, with the Warriors, and a guy, and I actually questioned him. This guy hasn't played for 18 months. He hasn't played a really decent standard of basketball in 2 years. And do the Kings need another wing? It turns out they did. Because how fortuitous was it to get him when the MVP goes down in game 1 of the grand final series, and then he steps in and the Kings are golden, basically. So, but you're talking about these 3 new imports. Derek Walton Jr., absolute stud. Kyle Lowry type. I've known him, again, it's funny, like Jalen was a guy I knew from his St. Bonaventure days, and Walton's a guy that I've paid a bit of attention to over the last few years as well. So he's rugged, he's tough, strong, unbelievable facilitator. Let me tell you guys that the word from the Kings camp, they cannot believe how good a passer this guy is. Like they're saying he's a better passer than Jalen. Like
so is he a bit old school, you reckon, like pass first, or is he sort of still got offensive talent?
He can score. Jalen was probably more score first, even though he was a great facilitator as well. And I still maintain, I told you guys, he's the best point guard that the Kings have ever had. There's I still put him on that pedestal, even after how many games it was, 21 or something. But this guy, he's going to be different. Better on-ball defender, that's another thing. So the Kings have really picked up 2 outstanding defenders at the guard and the wing spots. Can shoot the ball, can do a lot of things, but facilitation is really where he's at. And he's going to be an absolute. He's an MVP candidate. He's not Jalen Adams. He's different, but he could be every bit as effective. Justin Simon, known commodity. They knew what they wanted. He was a guy. he was top of their list. You know, they knew that when they knew that they weren't going to keep Clark, that was pretty obvious. They wanted someone who could essentially a plug-and-play guy. Now, the big question mark with Justin, even though he shot the ball well in Germany, is still the outside shot.
Yeah.
Can he hit the outside shot consistently? It's still, for me, with him, still going to be a prove it to me shot. That said, unbelievable defender, unbelievable in transition, which we know Chase Buford loves to run.
Yeah.
And he's going to be exciting, there's no doubt.
The fans will like him, I reckon.
The fans will love him. Yeah, I mean, look, he was unbelievable in Wollongong. I mean, you never forget that putback dunk in Perth. Sorry, Woody. Sorry, Robbie, rather. You know, that putback dunk, we were calling that game.
Yep.
And, it was like a Jalen, my Jalen Adams, you know, craziness. It was just, I went off. But the biggest question mark is Suarez. It really is. You know, obviously played in Israel, but you look at his college career, this guy was not a D1 player. I mean, he's every bit of 6'11". Like, he's legit. He's big. I saw him at the Season Kings season launch. It was like, holy cow, you are big. He's got good athleticism, not great athleticism. The big thing is he can shoot. He's got that three-point range. They wanted that. But for anyone to think in any way, shape or form this is going to be Jarrell Martin, forget it.
Do you think money played a factor in that?
He's the budget. There is no question he's the budget signing. No two ways about it. Yeah. I just think, you know, look, it's the nature of the beast, right? Everybody that signs for the Kings is a superstar or is expected to be.
Your price goes up when you just won a ring as well, right?
Well, there's that. But, I mean, I just think there has to be a level of expectation about what this guy is. And, you know, don't be surprised if he actually comes off the bench. Because Jordan Hunter is like a brand. Jordan Hunter's like a new. I mean, Chase even said this to me. He's like it's like having a new. He didn't play last year.
Yeah.
And this guy 2 years ago was second in most improved voting, and had that game against. I think he was either 8 for 8 or 9 for 9 down in the NBL Cup in Melbourne, and he was phenomenal. And everyone, what the hell? Who is this guy? But I mean, I again, Geordie's, you know, full disclosure, very close to me. Ben Knight, you know, my broadcast partner, has done an enormous amount of work with him over the years. I'm really high on him. He's been tearing it up in training. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually gets the start this year eventually. Suarez is a guy. Look, he can. I'm not trying to down it. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. For one thing, I'd get killed by Buford and Pondgrass and Julian O'Brien because he can do a lot of things. Like he fills a need. They wanted a guy at that spot who could stretch the floor. He just hasn't had the level of competition, nor is he at an NBA level. He just isn't, and people have to be realistic about that. That said, he doesn't have to be, because Xavier Cooks is on the same trajectory as Matthew Nielsen, in my opinion. He's an absolute superstar. He's gone, obviously it's a little bit different because Matty didn't go to college. Xavier went to Winthrop, then he obviously went to Germany, and then he had his injuries and all of that. But it's interesting how a lot of what happened with Matt, when you think about the first championship Kings won, he really blossomed in that first year under Gorge. Then the second year was named captain and became the league MVP, grand final MVP, the best player in the league. Before that was his last year in the NBL. And Xavier's the captain. He's coming off a grand final MVP, obviously last season. I think he's going into that territory, which is kind of King's legend territory. And even Chase said it. I mean, if he sticks around for 2 or 3 more years, wins a couple more championships, I mean, his name could be going up in that wall of legends. I think he's a superstar, and I think Dejan Vasiljevic is about to make the leap as well, because he's going to have a lot more responsibility offensively this year.
They're Aussie talents just across the board, isn't it, with some of these sort of young guys, Hunter and DJ and stuff like that. I wanted to ask you, Woods, about Kawhi Noy. I obviously mentioned him at the start there. What are you sort of expecting from him this year? And he seems a pretty good signing, I reckon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the knock on him was he was out of shape, and he came in last year not looking $1 million.
Injury prone. Yeah.
Injury prone, that too, and sometimes he just put his head down and dribble recklessly and not look up. You've seen him do that sometimes, play with a bit of reckless abandon. I think this system is going to be good for him. I was telling Matt when we caught up at Hills a month or two ago that the kind of influence Buford had on a guy like Wani Swakala-Bullock, right, and taking his game to the next level. I think this is going to be a good environment for Kawhi. He's got all the talent, and And having some other veteran guys on that roster won't hurt him, and having a player's coach like Buford. You spoke about the Kingdom the other day on your podcast, Matt, right? And you just really saw what a player's coach Chase was, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what someone like Kuat needs. And actually, back to your point as well, I think that the reason they could have gone for a guy like Suarez is because they knew Geordie Hunter was coming back.
Yeah,
he could cover that spot, right?
You don't necessarily need a superstar in that spot. That will need 30 minutes a game. And I think it's a nice little tag team duo. Look, in terms of up front, in terms of Kuat, I just think it's a classic low risk, high reward signing. Look, 3 years ago, people were talking about this guy as a potential NBA draft pick. People forget. And, he didn't have a great career in Cairns. And a lot of it is exactly what Woody said. Out of shape. And I must admit, when I first saw him in NBL North, I was horrified because he looked like he was going to need 2 seats, not 1, when he came to Sydney. But to his credit, I saw him the other day and he looked fantastic. Like he's dropped a lot of weight. The Kings have got a great strength and conditioning program, as we know, because they did wonders with Jarrell Martin. Jarrell Martin was in the same boat. His first year, he was out of shape. There's no doubt. Second year, the man was a superstar. They needed him to be that. This year, they don't necessarily need that because Xavier Cooks is Xavier Cooks, man. He's on his way to potentially being the best player in the league. Bryce Cotton notwithstanding. Best Australian player in the league, no doubt about that.
Wanted to know your thoughts, Matt. I know you spoke to him on the Roundtable podcast last week, and Coach Chase Buford. What are you sort of expecting from him this year? Obviously, another year sort of into it, sort of thing. He showed. I don't know whether the maturity is the wrong sort of word there. I guess there's a few times, but I like the passion personally. But what are you sort of expecting from him this season?
Yeah, I think that is something he's working on, and he's admitted it. He's come out publicly and said, I need to work on being a better person, on and off the court, and but he's a fiery character. We saw that obviously, memorably in Hobart when he kicked the hell out of that LED screen, and fortunate not to get tossed. He'd already been tapped, and he should have been tossed. They weren't. The referees weren't looking at it, but that's by the by. Look, he obviously knows his stuff, clearly. He's incredibly intelligent. Look, from a personal experience, fantastic guy. He's an absolute champion. Yeah, he really is. I love it. And you mentioned players coach, whatever. That's exactly what he is. He's a players coach. And I think he's learning. He's still learning his craft. People forget. But he's got an extraordinary support system around him. And this is a guy that, he talked about in the podcast. Forget the fact that he's got his dad, who's one of the absolute legends of the game, R.C. Buford, and talk about a great guy. My God, he's fantastic. I love him. Love him to death. We had him on and we interviewed him before Game 3 of the Grand Final Series, and just that was one of the best podcasts we did, because it was
I remember.
People. Yeah. I had Spurs fans saying that is the best Spurs podcast I've ever heard, and that's because of him. But the other guy is Greg Popovich. He had dinner with him. He's had dinner with him multiple times.
Yeah.
But Greg Popovich, it's kind of funny. Like, I think people missed it when RC was on our podcast. He kept talking about Greg, talking about what Chase was doing with the Kings, and the fact that Pop's been watching. Like, Pop watches the NBL. Yeah, it kind of blows your mind when you think about, oh my God, it's Popovich. It's Pop. He watches the NBL. So
probably why he went off
that's right. Then he's got Luke Longley and Andrew Bogut, and then a league MVP in Kevin Lish and Fleur McIntyre, who was spectacular as an assistant. Yeah. She did an amazing job, and he talks about her as being as valuable as anyone. So I guess having all that support around him is going to be huge for him, and he's going to have to do things a little differently because obviously we know his whole philosophy, pace and space. He wants to play 5 out a lot of the time. He wants everybody to be versatile. He's going to have to deal with teams cheating off Justin Simon defensively. I think that's going to be that'll test him. But then on the other hand, that's going to mean more opportunities for Dejan Vasiljevic. And as I said, Derek Walton. This is where having a super facilitator like Derek Walton Jr. is going to be huge for them, because that guy will make the right play at the right time and get the ball to the right people in places where they can be successful. So if you can't tell, I'm very bullish on them.
Yeah.
It's going to be different. It's going to be different. No two ways about it. And as I said, I think Suarez is the biggest question mark, but then it might not be so much of an issue because of Jordan Hunter's return, because I'm so high on Jordan. So I think they'll be fine. They definitely can go back to back. There's no doubt about it. They can go back to back.
Matt, just before we move on, just thinking about that, right? You got Jordan Hunter, you got Justin Simon, you got Xavier Cooks, all on the floor at the same time, right? Alongside DJ Vasiljevic and Derek Walton, right? You got three guys who are not going to be able to make that outside shot. You know what I mean? So, there's maybe some different combinations that he can throw out there. Throw Kouat Noy out there. Maybe play Cooks at the 5 and Simon at the 4, Noy at the 3.
Which he loves to do. 100%. He's going to throw. I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I think with Chase, I think he's going to throw a lot of different alignments out there. There's no two ways about it. It's not going to be not that really. We talk about positionless basketball, but interestingly enough, they do have guys that are actually more traditional type.
Sure.
The centre, you got your two centres, you got your power forward in Cooks, but I think you're right. I think we could see quite a bit of that small ball, and Sean Bruce was terrific in the playoffs. We haven't even talked about Angus Glover, and I think provided he can stay healthy, I mean that's another guy coming off the bench. They really love Jackson McCoy. I mean he's a DP, but he's done. Anybody who watched Afro, the African team, South Sudan, what he did, that kid can go, man. He can absolutely go. So they're deep. Again, I think depth is going to be a huge key for the NBL as a whole this year. They're going to be fine.
And Matt, finally, one favourite of everyone in New South Wales and Sydney, young kid Buwali Bales, right?
We haven't even talked about Buwali. And dealt with injuries last year, but he's a super talent. We've not even scratched the surface with him.
So
we've seen bits and he's flashed, right? Well, there have been flashes before he got hurt last year. It's just going to be, can you get the opportunities? They're so loaded in the backcourt.
That's what I was thinking.
Like Brucey's a guy they trust. And look, Brucey in the grand final was extraordinary because when Jalen went down, they needed someone to step up. I mean, I was in Hobart, obviously, as you know, for game 2. And just seeing him and some of the passes, he had, I think, 6 or 7 assists in game 2. And everyone talks about DJ and what X did, and rightly so. But the fact of the matter was, Sean Bruce was gigantic in that game. And I think getting him back, and you've got other guys like obviously Derek's going to play the lion's share of the minutes. It's going to be hard because and Jackson McCoy's going to want minutes as well, even though he's a DP. And then Buwali is. So it should mean great competition for minutes, which is a good problem to have.
Definitely.
Hey, Woods, before we wrap this up, I hear there's rumours that you may have been speaking with the Kings owner on the phone this week. Just wanted to confirm if that was true. What are you trying to get a job there or something? What's going on?
It is true. Now, Paul Smith just hit me up on Twitter, and we had a nice conversation on the phone, and he's got an idea about, doing some sort of collaboration with a bunch of collectors of throwbacks and basketball memorabilia as a kind of showcase before a Flames game, right? Sydney Flames game, right? That's the women's team, right? They're the Flames, am I right?
Correct, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
By the way, you're now done with Paul Smith. Yeah. Remember the name of his team.
But it was just to sort of get some more bums on seats. Basically, the idea was to do something before the game so that, potentially people who wouldn't normally attend a WNBL game would be able to do so, right? Sydney Uni Flames, I know it, man. I was just double checking, right? So relax.
Nice. Well, last thing on the Kings, thanks for that, Woods, as well. Matt, we normally like to talk a little bit from the fantasy perspective there and give a stud and a dud from each team. So I don't know how much you're up on that, but is there anyone that either of you can think of that might be a bit of a stud, so someone you have to get on your fantasy team, and a dud?
It's obvious. The stud's obvious, isn't it?
Xavier Cooks, man.
Actually, for me, Dejan Vasiljevic. Because there's going to be a lot more on his shoulders offensively, and I think, I know. Look, you saw him playing for Australia. You saw him in the NBL1, and he's hitting 30-footers like he's Steph Curry. Like he's just pulling up and going whack, whack, whack with no conscience whatsoever. he's going to be the Chris Golding of the Sydney Kings. I've got no doubts about it.
And Cooks might be too expensive in fantasy woods. DJ might be a better sort of option. Cooks
that's what I was thinking.
Player, Yep. You know, those blocks and steals.
He's going to fill up the spread. Yeah. The thing is, from a fan, he's going to fill it up, right?
Free throws, though, boys. Free throws.
And the perimeter shot, yeah. So that's why give me DJ personally as a.
What about a dud? Is there anyone that you think that may not have the season as advertised or may not get the sort of minutes? I know it's going to be hard for you boys to actually sort of give me a dud, but it's not like a dud in general, but just in terms of in fantasy. Like you might not want to maybe own this guy.
Well, as I said, I think, and again, not to disrespect him, but because I don't think he'll have the impact that Jarrell Martin would, and that's Suarez. I think people look at him as they might think of him as an import and think, well, as an import, I should pick him up in fantasy. But in all honesty, in a team as loaded as that, and a team that's really more built around, as I said, down Vasiljevic and X, he may not have that kind of impact from a stats perspective. May contribute in other ways, but from a stats perspective, I'd probably steer clear of him.
Good call. Well, you know what? I actually survived that little Sydney Kings love fest there, and I actually enjoyed that, so that was good. But I agree with what you said, though, Matt. I definitely can see this team has got all the tools to go back to back. I mean, I know we've said it a few times in the last few episodes, Woods, a lot of teams do seem to have improved, from last season. Every team's going to go in probably confident there, but, no reason why they're...
With a couple of exceptions, which I won't talk about.
I mean,
maybe one in particular.
I'm still not sure with Melbourne, to be honest. I mean, they seem like they've got a few decent replacements. They've obviously lost a lot, but, all those other teams like Brisbane will be better, Adelaide will be better,
Brisbane,
Perth will be better,
Hey, just on that, we had JJ on the show last week, man. He seemed pretty bullish about his team, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, you don't expect the coach to come on and say,
we're not
going to be that good.
God love
But, I mean, it'd be interesting to see how they go. They've still got some good quality on paper, but, they do seem like they've progressed a bit from last year.
You make a great point, though, Robbie. I mean, I think that's, and I said this last week, I think this has got the potential to be one of the most competitive ever. Yeah. Because of how many teams have just improved so much on paper. You kind of look, I mean, you mentioned, I think Adelaide, Brisbane. What about New Zealand? No one's talking about them, but they get to go home and play. They finally get to go home. What a boost that's going to be for them, and I wasn't the biggest Dan Shamir fan, so maybe that could be addition by subtraction as well.
Yep.
So we'll see, but and I think the standout most improved candidate is William McDowell White, and they're going to be huge. But anyway, sorry, we probably couldn't go on because we were talking about Kings, but just from a general perspective, I mean, I just think that's what's so fascinating. I can't pick a winner. I think last year was kind of like we knew Sydney, we knew Melbourne was going to be thereabouts. Illawarra with Gorge, so you kind of knew. This year, there's 10 teams in the league. I think 8 or 9 have a legitimate chance of making the playoffs. Really, which is incredible.
Good call. All right, boys, it's been really fun. We're sort of getting towards the outro part now. So before I get on with the formalities, I just wanted to really thank you again for coming on, Matt. It's always great to
Pleasure, mate.
Talk it up. And I'm sure we'll try and get you on again. This year we'll try and find some more Celtics jerseys and get some random stats for you to do. Well done on naming 11 of the 12 players, I think.
Unreal.
I'm just a nerd. Don't worry.
Isn't it funny, though, with the Celtics, there's so few numbers available now that, if someone leaves, you pretty much got to get one of these numbers because all the other ones are pretty much retired. So I think that probably shows you why that number was worn so many times.
I must admit, one thing would, Robbie, I must admit, I thought you were going to give me the Bainesy jersey, but then I remembered he's the only one that's ever worn 46.
Yeah,
that's it.
Interesting.
No one's ever been, obviously, because 46 is kind of a weird number,
isn't it? Yeah. Good stuff. Well, all right. So just to mention at the start of the show, please subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Just a reminder where we can be followed. On Twitter, we're at Throwbacks Hoops. Instagram, we're throwback.hoops. And our email address, keep any questions coming. We love getting them. throwbackhoopspodcast@gmail.com. We'll go to you first, Woods, and then we'll give Matt a little bit of an opportunity to plug what he's got. Woods has gone a bit frozen there, has he? Or... You know what it is, Matt? His missus is streaming stuff on Netflix again. I guarantee.
Oh, that's Woody.
Woody, am I right? Is your missus watching Netflix right now? Come on. Yep, now he's on mute, so he's even worse now. So, his missus hasn't done him any favours there. So, tell you what, Matt, amateur hour from Woody, so we'll go straight to you, mate. But yeah, have you got anything you want to plug, or let the viewers and listeners know where they can listen to your stuff?
Yeah, so obviously Clutch Radio, the NBL Roundtable every Thursday. We've got some great shows coming up. Next one will be we've got Woody trying to cut in there. Next one's going to be a bit of a Blitz preview featuring Liam Santa Maria. So looking forward to that. And a couple of other huge podcasts, and then we'll have our game coverage again. I'll be doing play-by-play of Sydney and Illawarra games.
Go to Matt.
Woody's like about 10 minutes behind.
What is going on? Seriously?
Go to Matt.
He is going to Matt.
Wow.
This is crazy.
Normally I blame this on what was in his cup, but I think this is actually internet related rather than that. Anyway, well, it's just a good job we got to the end of the show anyway. But no, just again, really wanted to thank you for coming on, Matt. I'm sure we'll probably catch up at a game or something this year. I know Woods and I. Are you going to be going to any of the World Cup games as well? Or?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, I only live around the corner, so I can literally walk to them.
Woody and I have got tickets for the gold medal and the bronze medal games on that last day. So really looking forward to that. Just hope Australia can make it to the big game and might go and buy a Warren Jackson jersey and cheer her on. But no, just a big thanks again. Look, I'm sure if Woods was here, man, he'd be thanking you for coming on as well, but he's just disappeared now, so I'll have to find out what was going on. So just to, please continue to subscribe, listen to the show. We'll be back next week for a very special episode. And yeah, it's a big peace out from the Throwback Hoops crew. Thanks, guys.